Good morning, everyone. Again, welcome to Daring Cities 2025 Bonn Dialogues. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes, so at 9:35. So I'd kindly ask everyone to take your seats. And again, we do have simultaneous interpretation available today in English and in Portuguese. So please make sure that you get a headset for interpretation at the table at the entrance. And we'll be starting in just 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Take another one. Ah, there's another one. No, use this one. Maybe it stays with you. This is the mute button. So now you're on. It's okay. Yeah, much better. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So, we'd like to kindly invite all the colleagues to take their seats so that we can start as quick as possible, sticking to our times. It will be an intense day. My name is Yunus Arika, and I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE Local Governance for Sustainability. I am delighted to serve as the moderator of the day so that I can make the transitions between the sessions. I also would like to use the first 3 to 4 minutes to check how much we are familiar with the concept of daring cities. This will be warming up so that we can all feel who is in the room and how we have been coming all this journey to today. So I see most of the registration is completed. If you allow me, let me open my notes without making any mistakes. So this is the third day of the 6th edition of the Daring Cities Bonn Dialogues in 2025, the Global Forum for Urban Leaders Taking on Climate Emergency. So since we are now more or less settled, it will also be good now to have a quick exercise. Who has been involved in the Daring Cities over the past 6 years, either in person or virtually? Please raise your hand. Okay, like quarter of the room. Who's the first time attending this year, either virtually or in person? Wow, welcome. That's cool. That's cool. That's really great because this is exactly what we wanted to, before joining into the really exciting dialogues, just to take you through how we started this journey. 2009 was remarkable for a number of reasons, not because that I joined ICLE, but it was also the time that ICLE moved to, the World Secretaries moved to Bonn from Toronto after 16 years. This was a warm welcome from City of Bonn, State of North Rhine-Westphalia, Federal Government of Germany, and the UN family in Bonn. It was the peak moments of climate action. 2009 was unfortunately also remarked as a bit disappointing story, with the climate conference in Copenhagen being a failure in terms of the way forward. And then we said, okay, what is our task? We will not leave this alone. We said that if Copenhagen has failed, this means Kyoto Protocol is not alive. So this means mitigation commitments are weak. This means our cities are under threat. So resilient cities was our first process to say that we should make our cities prepared, and we should make our UNFCCC colleagues aware of our efforts. 10 years. It was 10 years to build this concept, the famous GSI, and it was really the host for us for years. When we came to 2019, 10 years later, It was the moment something different. Paris Agreement was adopted, and we have seen that it was implemented. It was for the first time a hope. The global emissions or the global climate temperature increase was about to be bended, so that we said that it's not just being resilient, but it's also daring the transition to a new economy, new society. Are we ready to face this challenge? Are we ready to dare this? I remember Greta speaking about how dare are you? And she said, yes, we dare to be bold. We dare to be really stick to the mission. So how did we define what makes a city daring? We said, no, more, which means the latest science should guide us. Our policies should be based on science. We said that we should act better, which means the previous types of actions are not enough. We have to change our mindset. We have to prepare for better partnerships, better concepts. And then we said that lead together, which means everyone has a role. Everyone can be a leader, be it a mayor, be it a staff, be it a politician, be it a citizen. That was really we have seized this opportunity because there was a global momentum, and starting from 2020, we were trying to have that motion of this collaborative action. Suddenly came COVID. So the first 3 years we were in virtual. We started to gradually be hybrid, and especially starting last year, we are all back to back with the UNFCCC discussions. And how we want to lead this Daring Cities movement, we wanted to be reflecting. So what has been achieved in the years before, or in the year before in the climate negotiations, so we will use the first 2 months to reflect on that. Then exchange in person, and later on in virtual sessions. Then advocate. Go to the COPs, go to the UN climate summits, go to other places so that we share and we feed into the decision-making process. This year, the theme is strong national climate plans through multi-level action. We were past 2 days in the UNFCCC, we were involved with the negotiations, and now we are here. And we are having the advantage that we are also not just limited to physically, we are also virtual. So we have audience listening to us, and these sessions will be recorded and available. And finally, I would like to thank to all partners that made this journey, excuse me, a reality, especially this year. I'd like to start with, of course, co-conveners, ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability, and the Federal City of Bonn, strategic and supporting partners, German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, and GIZ, especially hosting this beautiful venue. But we have knowledge partners this year, United Nations University, Academy of International Affairs of North Rhine-Westphalia, State of North Rhine-Westphalia. We don't have time, global communications partner, Climate View, an important partner for data, Overseas Economic Cooperation Center from Japan, EBRD from London, Europe, CHAMP Support Unit, C4DGCOM, UN Habitat, Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action, Urban Transition Mission, and of course, the big family of the LGMA constituency. My last words. We usually do this thanks to the end, but I really think that we have to start this round a warm applause to the team who has created this. Joe and events team, Ariel and the comms team, communications team, Alisa and the climate team, and Jan and the GIZ team. I see Jan over here. Sebastian and the BMZ team, Stefan and Susan from City of Bonn. You are more than welcome to convey all your critics so that we can make it better, but also please convey your appreciation to our boss so that we can continue that the years ahead, we can continue this journey. So this was the introduction, and now the first panel. I think we have now our calendar. We will have a series of panels, we will have breakout groups, and in the afternoon we will have roundtables. I will now start with our agenda of the first panel, and I will immediately invite the moderators and the speakers of our first session. I'd like to start in the order of seating so that they are not confused. I'd like to welcome Kobe Brandt, Regional Director for ICLE Africa, and Deputy Secretary of ICLE. Welcome, Kobe, a long journey from Africa on the way to Nice and here. Kobe, this way will be better. We are delighted to have the Mayor of Bonn, Katja Dörner, who is also the co-chair of Climate Action and Advocacy. Thank you, Mayor Dörner, especially for a wonderful host for ICLE and all the UNFCCC colleagues here and other UN agencies. Our third speaker is also our host, Mr. Ingrid Hoven from GIZ, the managing director of GIZ, who has been an instrumental partner for years to come. And I think over the next couple of minutes, we will also have Marjorie Kaufman, sorry, Environment Secretary of Rio Grande do Sul, State of Rio Grande do Sul from Brazil, so welcome. Don't forget, we have English, Portuguese translations, and I would like to wish you the best of success, and thanks a lot.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Joe. And what a wonderful occasion to start this Daring Cities event today with an all-female panel. And we have to thank our Secretary General, Gino Van Begin, sitting here in front of us, asking me to moderate because this is normally a seat he takes. And thank you, Gino, for making sure that we are making a bit of a statement, a small one, but a very important one, that we're an all-women panel. Thank you very much. And I can tell you what a formidable panel of leaders these are. So as we gather here today, Gina, Yunus, you've said it all, very warm welcome to everybody. Make sure, because our Secretary Marjorie Kaufman is going to be speaking in Portuguese. You have headphones there. Make sure that you grab them if you want. But that's the only house rules I'm conveying to you. I'm just very privileged to be your moderator today. As we reflect on COP29, it's clear that there was progress, but not yet at the scale or urgency the climate crisis demands. What stood out, however, was of course the leadership shown by our subnational constituency. ICLEI, through our role as the LGMA focal point and the CHAMP initiative together, helped ensure that local voices were heard loudly and clearly. And at COP29's Urbanization Day and the third ministerial meeting on urbanization, led by UN Habitat, supported by us, we saw rare consensus. Urban action is one of the few areas where progress is both visible and collaborative. This sets the scene for today's discussion, how we build on that momentum and how subnational leadership can continue to shape the global climate agenda. So let's dive right into this exciting discussion. Don't have a lot of time, but I'm hopefully going to come back to you in a second round of questions. But as we start now, we are going to start off with the first round of questions around how your organization or your city or your state is contributing to multi-level indices 3.0s, and what your organization is doing or have done to advance this multi-level nature of the indices, which is what we know we all need and want. So maybe I could start with our Honourable Lord Mayor, Katja Dörner, from this lovely city, Bonn, who will be speaking about how the city of Bonn is accelerating citizen engagement for ambitious action to respond to the climate emergency. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and first of all, thank you for inviting me today. Being with the Daring Cities is always a wonderful experience and a wonderful opportunity to talk to other mayors and ambitious people who like to tackle climate emergency, and I think working together like that is extremely important. So thank you very much for that. And referring to your question, I think it's obvious that we cannot be successful in tackling the climate emergency if we don't convince our people and if we don't manage to get all people on board. So, and therefore in Bonn, it's one of our main focuses to talk to people and to involve people into all the processes. And we had a very broad process called Bonn for Future, where we ask the people in Bonn about their own ideas and perspectives on climate change and measures and strategies. And we implemented their ideas and their perspective into our own climate plan. So we evolved our climate plan and our strategy with a goal to become climate neutral in 2035. On the one hand, on a scientific basis, on administrative basis, but also with the ideas from our own people. And what we learned from this process, Bonn for Future, which was a process on the city level, that it's extremely important to talk on a quartiers level, on a lower level. And at the moment, we invented 4 climate districts in Bonn, in Bad Godesberg, in Beul, and in the 4th district of Bonn, im Hartberg. And we cooperate with very well established cultural organizations or social welfare organizations and bring the idea of climate change in such a kind of network. So people have the possibility to learn, to get guidance, but also to bring their own ideas to account on a very basic level. And this is one of the lessons learned. Go directly and talk directly to the people, and our climate districts are a very important step to this point. And one other thing I think that is very important that we can contribute is our data. We established a good data platform with our climate data, and this is very transparent, and all other people are invited to use our data, and I think this will be very important when it comes to the next NDGs.
Wow, thank you very much, Mayor. I think, we all recall COPs where we attended, where issues around climate and culture were not even spoken of. And here we hear it every day. Data, of course, you highlighted so many important aspects. Hopefully we can dive really deep into these discussions throughout the day. So let me now move to Ingrid Hofen, the Managing Director of this beautiful establishment housing GIZ, and we all know GIZ the world over as a trusted partner, especially us in the ICLEI world. We've come such a long journey with GIZ. Thank you for everything you're doing for local and subnational governments the world over. Many oftentimes in collaboration with us, but also with others. We thank you for your bold leadership in this space, understanding why local issues and implementation matters. So as Managing Director and big boss, if I may say, of this whole establishment, GIZ, in supporting NDCs 3.0, specifically in the Global South, what is your particular emphasis and take on multi-level collaboration?
Yeah, good morning, and it's always a pleasure to host Daring City here in our Bonn premises, the Bonn headquarters of GIZ. This has become now a tradition, actually. When you look back into the conferences we organized here, always side by side with the UNFCCC SB conferences in Bonn with resilient cities. Now it's about daring cities. It's much more about the future and the vision that we want to achieve jointly. But I think this has become actually also for Bonn, for the SBs, like a cornerstone, a pillar of what has to happen in those 2 weeks. And especially I think that your conference, Daring Cities, brings this practical perspective of mayors around the world to this conference place, to the negotiations, where perhaps sometimes battles are a little bit fierce, but the mayors bring the perspective of doing. What is doable? What is actually achievable? Into these two weeks. So many thanks to Gino van Begen for this excellent partnership, and of course special thanks to the both guests of honor today, Lord Mayor of Bonn and of course Lord Mayor of Brasilia. So what are we doing? Actually GIZ is working now and has started already last year to support more than almost 60 countries in elaborating their MDC 3.0. And it is a good tradition, and we started to do so already in the previous NDC cycles to figure out how we can bring subnational levels into these elaborations. And this depends, of course, on the setting. Not all the governments were from the very early stage perhaps so convinced that this is necessary. But I think that when you look into specific NDCs, like for instance, we have included subnational levels in Colombia, you figure out that actually the pattern of what is included in NDC changes. Cities are already experiencing much of the climate crisis. Heating, flooding, and actually in Colombia we realized that the new NDC has actually a higher level of adaptation measures included than previously. And I think this is partially due to the input from municipalities. They are close to people. They know what they need, they know where they are suffering, and I think this brings a higher quality to the NDC process. The second point that I would like to underline is actually we have started to be in this process since 2017. Perhaps some of you do remember the big conference in Heidelberg organized by the German government, where I think that for the first time we really put municipalities, local governments much more on stage for the climate process. And since then a lot has happened. But still I think we still have a long way to go, and therefore we are friends of CHAMP, friends of this multi-level high coalition, because we feel we have to forge more synergies among the different initiatives, have to make sure that we really scale up action that brings innovation and more resilience to cities. So this is like a second issue that we are pursuing in the NDC process. And finally, finance. Quite recently, a report was published by the World Bank that actually year by year, until 2050, we have to invest around 800 billion US dollars in investments to make cities not only people-centered, but actually also climate resilient. This is a huge amount of money. Of course, this can't be done by the public sector, so mobilization of other stakeholders, local capital markets, private sector, etc., is absolutely core and center. And this is actually another point that we have been inducing into the NDC process, to look for actionable activities, look for bankable projects that can be implemented in the nearer term, in the near future, so that really something changes on the ground.
Fantastic, and very, very well said. These issues around financing, of course, are very close to our hearts and our daily discussions in the world of ICLEI and in the world of cities. So thank you for highlighting that as well. We now turn to another part of the world, a very important part of the world, as we move to Brazil. And I would like to say thank you very much again, Ms. Hoven. But as we now turn to Marjorie Kaufman, who is the State Secretary for Environment and Infrastructure from the state of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil, to hear your reflections, I just want to say thank you very much for being here. Your state is still recovering from a world-changing event in a way, which led to a lot of solutions that you had to find yourself and implement yourself. So really strong female leaders is what the world needs much more of. You're one of them. We would very much like to hear your reflections as we now look at the Brazilian NDC3 specifically, and how this helps addressing climate action in cities and exactly in states like yourselves. Marjorie, over to you. Thank you.
Muito obrigada, é prazer estar aqui falando com instituições tão importantes e também para multiplicadores potenciais que nós temos, como outros prefeitos, outros líderes que possam estar envolvidos nesses fatores. Nossas explanações a nível nacional e internacional, elas têm começado sempre pelos números. E acho que isso é primordial. Então, nós não podemos esquecer que 95% do território do Estado foi atingido pela última enchente em 2024, que mais de 400 formas de acesso, estradas, pontes foram interrompidas, que mais de 80 mil pessoas foram resgatadas, em 2 milhões de pessoas atingidas, direta ou indiretamente. E nós reforçamos esse número para poder explicar onde foi o ponto de partida para o Estado. Então, recentemente eu mencionei em uma conferência que as pessoas perguntam qual é a lição do que aconteceu no Estado do Rio Grande do Sul. E acho que a lição máxima foi do quanto nós estamos unidos como espécie, como ser vivo, como ser humano, e o quanto que nós precisamos estar juntos para esse objetivo comum de sobrevivência nesse momento climático. Então, esse ponto foi um ponto de partida, e quando nós falamos que as coisas acontecem no território, nos municípios, no campo, na cidade, assim como a ação vai vir desses territórios, o efeito é nesses territórios. E é muito forte, e é muito importante que a comunidade esteja sabida de tudo que está acontecendo, esteja consciente de tudo que está acontecendo. E nós falamos aqui da enchente do ano passado, mas neste momento nós temos mais de 20 municípios que estão, mais uma vez, sofrendo com inundações, que ocorreram durante os 3 últimos dias. Então, o padrão climático, ele alterou, e nós precisamos estar preparados para isso. Recentemente eu ouvi também do ministro do STF que quando a gente pensa qual é como é que nós vamos reagir, como é que o Estado, que eu sou secretário de Estado, vai se posicionar, e ele disse, basta cada um fazer a sua parte bem feita, baixar a cabeça e fazer a sua parte bem feita. Então, o Estado do Rio Grande do Sul, a partir desses números e daquela situação, pensou em como se organizar para poder reagir. E aí, quando a gente fala em uma reação de um desastre que atinge 95% da área territorial, é muito difícil, porque nós não temos a capacitação de todas as pessoas. Mas, como Estado, nós entendemos que o ponto inicial é o mapeamento das vulnerabilidades e das necessidades. Então, a partir da enchente de 2024, o Estado monta um plano que é um plano de resiliência, que é o Plano Rio Grande. Esse plano pode ser acessado nas páginas do governo do Estado, e ele tem a participação do setor público e privado em todas as suas faces. Ele tem a academia validando as novas implementações, e ele é um plano que tem mais de 30 anos de execução, entre obras de reconstrução adaptada, de preparação e também de transição, de inovação que vão estar contempladas. E conectado a esse plano, a nossa Secretaria desenvolve o Proclima 2050, que tem uma série de ações que já tinham sido desenhadas antes mesmo de 2024, mas em 2024 todos os projetos de governo eles foram repensados e revisados à luz daqueles parâmetros que ocorreram naquela máxima cheia, embora o Rio Grande do Sul seja um estado dependente da agricultura. E a agricultura é mais afetada pela questão de secas e não de enchentes. E essa vulnerabilidade climática ela tem causado grandes prejuízos e desafios para a continuidade dessa cultura. E, por fim, mencionar aqui também mais um programa que nós fizemos dentro da Secretaria, que eu acho que é muito útil do ponto de vista que a Secretaria, como ela é estadual, ela é meio entre as metas assumidas pela União e os municípios, e a nossa ideia é fortalecer essa conexão. Nós criamos o Roadmap Climático do Estado do Rio Grande do Sul. Ele foi financiado pelo Future Fund, do Under 2, e ele é um software de perguntas, um questionário estruturado para os municípios, onde eles colocam todos os elementos de adaptação, resiliência e mudanças climáticas que possuem nas suas cidades. Então, se existe plano de mudanças climáticas, se existe plano de contingência, quantas vezes o município entrou em emergência ou em calamidade e decretou isso oficialmente, se a defesa civil está preparada, se a questão da drenagem urbana está contemplada. E nesta plataforma, num total de 497 municípios, nós já temos 440 que preencheram a plataforma. Então, como nessa semana, já estou finalizando, como nesta semana nós tivemos enxurrada novamente, a gente olha para essa plataforma e verifica a situação daqueles municípios e consegue aportar o reforço. Então, esses são uns dos projetos que todos estão disponíveis e acessíveis na plataforma e que foram constituídos com o apoio técnico da GIZ, do ICLEI, do Under2 e de todos que colaboraram com esse processo. Obrigada.
Thank you, Joe. What will I do without Joe? Thank you very much, State Secretary. And this just reminds me that later today, in a different platform in our busy world, ICLEI, together with the World Water Council, will be hosting, in fact, a second webinar, global webinar, with another range of cities who are not here in Bonn today, specifically on urban flooding. Under the thematic partnership we have with the World Water Council around water, and it's either too much, too little, or too dirty. And you have both, too much, too little, perhaps also sometimes too dirty. So thank you very, very much for those insights, and we'll delve deeper into this. So to round up this panel, I'm going to ask in the same order, Mayor Katja Dörner, starting with you, just what are your ambitions and what is your message for us as a constituency and your desires for, it's a big question, but you can do it in 1 or 2 sentences. For what do we want to see in Belém? What do we want to go to with Belém? What do we want the outcome to be? Thank you.
Well, from the perspective of a mayor, my wish is that our perspective is included and that we can give our experience and our guidance to the subnational level. And when I listen to you, dear Marjorie, I'm very hopeful that the Brazilian delegation and the Brazilian government who host the COP in Belém, that they realized how important the question of urbanization and the climate crisis on the urban level is. So I hope that we will manage to get a new kind of cooperation on the multi-level level. Sorry? Yes, multi-level level that includes the perspectives of the cities much more than it has been done before. Thank you.
Dankeschön, fantastic. And let's go over to GIZ. A big ask, but a short answer, please.
Well, let me first start by congratulating Marjorie for actually the action that you're already taking. And when you have a chance to look into Brazil's NDC that was delivered last year, it's really a role model for including the municipal level in climate action. But more has to be done at the global level, I think. At least 1/3 of global CO2 reductions have to come from the local government level, so this is huge, and the opportunities are not seized. But additionally, I think the good news is for Belém, and I hope this message comes across, municipalities, cities, the local government level, this is the powerhouse for climate action, where you can really combine people-centered development with climate, combating the climate crisis. It's actually where you meet both ends. And if this message comes across, and if we tell a lot of good stories of implementation like yours, or the one that Lord Mayor of Bonn has described to us, what is doable, and this is in the sense of your wonderful call to action, Mutirão, is this, how do you spell it out, Mutirão, the call for action of the Brazilian presidency. This is about concerted efforts for implementation. And I think this is at the municipal level really can be a reality. So this is my wish, good narratives, good best practices, and really the avenue for scaling it up.
Very practical and something we as a constituency we as a constituency of local and subnational governments can really relate to that. And it's so wonderful to know, I say Berlin in the room here, it's so wonderful to know that this is the message that GIZ will also take forward to this very important COP30, a defining moment in the history of the world. So thank you very much for those insights. And just as we turn to the State Secretary for final remarks, reminding all of us it's a participatory event today, so get your cell phones ready. I think our team is going to facilitate a Mentimeter at the end of this for you to also make your inputs. But a State Secretary, from your perspective, you are in Brazil already. You have the climate and the barometer of what the feeling is in Brazil at the moment. It's going to intensify. What is your wish for success for our constituency, for states and cities in Belém?
Bem, nós estamos trabalhando junto a tudo que nós vamos levar na COP para que a gente possa demonstrar toda a diversidade de ações e não só a biodiversidade que o Brasil tem. Mas o meu desejo como ser humano na COP é que a gente possa, de fato, conversar e trocar essas experiências para que a gente, inclusive, perceba os erros ou o melhor caminho a serem feitos, então que as pessoas possam estar mais próximas ainda na COP, imbuídas desse objetivo comum. Então, que isso supere todas esses modelos que por muito tempo foram apenas acordos e que não chegaram na ponta. Então, que a gente esteja mais próximo enquanto espécie humana pensante para a prosperidade da nossa nação.
Obrigada, obrigada. And we will try, and we will be there. So I think we are all inspired. We're all looking forward to be together again in Berlin. There's still some days left here. Let that ambition only rise from here, from today onwards, to Berlin. And
But we want you to stay with us because the family during the break, coffee break.
All right, fantastic. And over to you, Yunus.
Thank you, Kobe, for your fantastic moderation as well. Thanks a lot. So, while our first speakers are taking their seats back to the audience platform, I'd like to invite the moderator and speakers of the next panel. Of course, the world is more than Germany and Brazil, so this session will be deep dive in some of the conditions of multi-level action across the world, and some of those speakers will continue in the breakout sessions after the coffee break, so that you can also continue to this discussion. So this is just a teaser. I'd like to warmly welcome my dear colleague Asif Nawaz Shah from CHAMP Support Unit on behalf of C40 and GCOM. Asif, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us and all your work since Dubai. So we're so happy to advance with CHAMP. In this round, we have Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith, Mayor of Adelaide from Australia. Welcome, Mayor. Great pleasure. Our next speaker is Kazuhisa Takushi, Mayor of City of Kitakyushu, Japan, who was also with us yesterday, and we are so happy because he made a very short trip to Europe and he squeezed daring cities with us. We have Dora Marema from South African Local Government Association. Dora, welcome, great pleasure. I know you were in difficult conditions with the floods in your country, but it's great that you are able to join us and definitely will share your experiences. We have Gutenberg de Villana Silva, Amapa State Director of the Amapa Research Foundation. Thank you, Gutenberg. This will be a great pleasure to welcome you here. And our last speaker will be joining us online. Has recorded kindly a video message. He was actually in Bonn a couple of days ago, thanks to the very nice initiative of the Academy of International Affairs of State of North Rhine-Westphalia, Steve Patterson. He's not just the mayor of city of Athens in the United States, but he's the president of the National League of Cities. So his video will be displayed, I think, at the end of the session, and I will hand over now with this to Asif for his excellent moderation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning. Thank you so much, Eunice, for the warm welcome, and thank you to Kobe and our opening high-level panel for getting us started this morning. Very excited to be moderating this distinguished panel. They've all been introduced, so I think we'll dive into sort of setting the context for this discussion and then hearing from our panelists. So I think it's no secret that we are living through times of geopolitical upheaval, tension, and uncertainty, and that environment, that climate, pardon the pun, is affecting our world here in terms of the action we hope to take to address the climate crisis, is particularly from the city and regional level, from the subnational level in particular. But there are signs, and there have been signs, as we all know, over the last several years, of a growing recognition of the need for climate action to continue, to persist, despite political tensions, despite geopolitical shifts, and moreover, the need for that climate action to be really rooted in what we call multi-level partnerships. Partnerships between multiple levels of government, the national, the state, or regional, and the city and local level, which is why it's so exciting to have the range of subnational views and perspectives here on this panel today. As you all know, I work for the CHAMP Support Unit, and CHAMP was a coalition that was launched at COP28 in Dubai in 2023 in recognition of this very fundamental principle. CHAMP stands for the Coalition for High Ambition Multi-Level Partnerships. 75 countries around the world have now signed on to this coalition, committing to working with subnational governments in planning, financing, implementing, and monitoring climate plans and strategies, including, critically, the current third generation of nationally determined contributions, some of which we've already seen and some of which we are anticipating eagerly on the road to Belém this year. And that's going to be a big part of the conversation today, so let's get started. I'm going to start with our representatives from Japan and Brazil, respectively, considering these are two countries from whom we have seen new NDC 3.0s already being submitted. And starting with Japan, the mayor of Kitakyushu, following COP26 in Glasgow, we've seen a inconsistent but clear ramping up of ambition and inclusion in the UNFCCC process. We saw the CHAMP coalition being launched at COP28. And this latest round of climate plans has taken place in this context. So we've seen that there's been a whole of society and whole of government mobilization and effort towards building these plans out. What would be your wish, you know, on the road to Belém, and how have you felt the impact of this shift in Japan in the context of the country's NDC 3.0?
Thank you. From a perspective of mayor of Kitakyushu City, so it's a great pleasure to be here. And so I really appreciate this wonderful opportunity to join this session. I have a feeling that some of you may already know my face, possibly in connection with chocolate and Japanese sake. Today, I'm honored to introduce Kitakyushu City briefly, and we would like to propose a model based on 4 C's, a multi-layered collaborative city for climate change, or MLC4 for short, emphasizing the depth and connection in every direction. Please start the slide. I prepared the presentation slides.
Just a second while we wait for the slides to come on.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you. Again, so MLC4 is Kitakyushu City. Uh, the essence of my talk today is simple: to sharpen our vision and bring more definition to the idea of a multi-layered collaborative city. I would propose a city that advances collaboration across 3 dimensions. Please, next, please. First, collaboration with all citizens. The people of Kitakyushu take pride in our environmental identity. From energy saving at home to local cleanup efforts, we engage everyone in building a carbon neutral and resilient future. Second, collaboration across all sectors. We work not only on environmental issues, but also link them with the economy, health, infrastructure, and welfare, partnering with businesses, government agencies, and NGOs. Third, collaboration with cities around the world. The world is a network of cities. Kitakyushu positions itself as a transboundary city, forming alliances across borders to accelerate global climate solutions. Next, please. As mayor of Kitakyushu, since 2023, I focused on bold urban change and global impact. Next, please. Kitakyushu is located at the northern tip of Kyushu Island with a population of about 1 million, surrounded by beautiful mountains and sea and known as Sushi Kingdom. The city also has a proud industrial history. Next, please. Castle, sea, mountain, and sushi. Next, please. We are home to Japan's first full-scale steelworks, and today we produce robots, automobiles, and cutting-edge technologies. Kitakyushu is also globally recognized as the home of world-renowned companies such as Nippon Steel, Yasukawa, and Toyota, Nissan. Next. It's precisely because of this industrial base that Kitakyushu has long been committed to sustainability. We were recognized at the 1992 Earth Summit and have received numerous international awards ever since. In fact, our entire history is a story of MLC4, multi-level cross-sector collaboration. Let me share just a few examples. Next. In the 1960s, Kitakyushu was one of the most polluted cities in the world. But ordinary wives raised their voices. In response, government and businesses took action. Together, we reclaimed our blue skies and clean seas, a story of citizen-led environmental transformation. Next. Collaboration. Next, collaboration with industry. We launched Japan's first eco-town, treating recycling as a new industrial opportunity. Today, we are a national leader in the circular economy. And in the port area, one of Japan's largest offshore wind projects is underway, thanks to strong partnerships with energy companies. Next, please. Third, regional collaboration. Together with 17 neighboring municipalities, we promote solar energy and energy-saving technologies. This effort has been designated by the national government as a leading decarbonization area. Next, please. And finally, a global collaboration. Kitakyushu has trained over 11,000 people from 169 countries, sharing our expertise in water, waste, and environmental policy. Just this month, we signed an agreement with the state of Telangana, India, to support the creation of an Indian version of our eco-town. In this way, Kitakyushu is more than a local government. It is a platform for regional and global transformation. Next, please. Next is this event with Telangana. Next, please. We aim not only to become carbon neutral by 2050, but to help reduce emissions across Asia by 150% of our own through shared technology, knowledge, and partnerships. Next, please. Look, a mandala is a sacred diagram from Buddhist tradition, often in the form of a circle filled with geometric patterns and symbolic figures. At the center, you usually find a Buddha, symbolizing wisdom, peace, and enlightenment. Surrounding it are layers of other deities and forces representing the universe in harmony. The mandala reminds us that everything is connected, not just spiritually, but in real life. This idea is deeply relevant to the environmental crisis we face today. Just like in mandala, nature, humans, animals, oceans, and air are all part of one interdependent system. When one part is harmed, the whole becomes unbalanced. So, the mandala teaches us that protecting the planet is not just a task, it's a spiritual responsibility. We must act with awareness and compassion, knowing that each decision we make ripples through the whole world. Next, please. That's why I believe it's time to move beyond the linear multi-level systems. Instead, we must shift toward a mandala-like model as a conceptual thought experiment, a circular, interconnected way of thinking and acting. In this model, citizens, communities, businesses, NGOs, and even other cities are not ranked, but organically connected. Polycentric model with mutual respect, flexibility, and shared purpose. Together, they form a holistic urban universe alive with diversity and collaboration. This is the kind of spirit and relationship we want to build, and we are starting from Kitakyushu. This is what we call a new kind of model, MLC4, mandala style. Next. The world today faces great uncertainty. Now more than ever, the power of a city is needed. If cities around the world became MLC4, multi-layered collaborative cities for climate change, the world can become truly sustainable. Let us work together. Here in Bonn, the birthplace of Beethoven, I truly believe we can compose a symphony of action with many ambitious cities around the world. And Kitakyushu is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and a great reminder that when the crises we face are not linear, then the solutions we put forward to address them should not be linear as well. Thank you very much, Mayor Takeuchi. I'm now going to turn the floor over to Mr. Gutenberg de Vilhena Silva. In the context of the Brazilian NDC, which we saw released last year, Mr. Silva, there was a lot of emphasis on what's called climate federalism, and this renewed push from the Brazilian government to not just involve other levels of government, but actively work with them, ensure that their priorities and their contributions are reflected in national government plans. How has that impacted your work in Amapá? And what would your wish be for the implementation of the NDC moving forward, and of course, towards COP30 in Belém this year?
Oi, oi. Bom dia, todas e todos. Bom dia ao dispositivo. Para mim é uma honra estar aqui representando o governo do Amapá. Para quem ainda não conhece, o estado do Amapá é o estado mais próximo do Pará, cuja capital está mais próxima de Belém do Pará, onde ocorrerá a COP do Brasil. E para nós é uma grande honra poder participar deste evento preparatório, porque o nosso governo acredita fortemente, e os dados mostram isso, que nós reunimos as características mais importantes daquilo que se espera como resultado da COP30. Explico. Nós temos no Brasil e, quiçá, no mundo, os melhores indicadores ambientais, com todos os territórios indígenas, quilombolas, ou seja, das populações tradicionais, protegidos. Todos estão devidamente demarcados. Ontem eu escutei, em uma reunião com o nosso coordenador nacional da COP30, o embaixador André Corrêa do Lago, que uma das pautas centrais para a COP30 é a demarcação efetiva das nossas terras indígenas. Nós já temos todas demarcadas. Uma outra pauta que é igualmente importante é a proteção das florestas. 93%, repito, 93% de toda a nossa floresta está preservada. Todo o nosso estado, 93% é coberto por florestas, das quais 70% é floresta primária. Este movimento multinível abriu oportunidade para que governos subnacionais pudessem ter mais voz, mais participação efetiva, se tornassem atores estratégicos de um movimento global. E o Amapá fez o seu dever de casa, historicamente, na medida em que todo o seu território tem a valorização da floresta, a valorização do conhecimento tradicional. Ontem, em uma apresentação, mencionei que nós temos uma faculdade dedicada aos povos indígenas. O governo do Amapá tem uma Secretaria de Estado dedicada aos povos indígenas, uma Secretaria de Estado dedicada aos povos afrodescendentes. Isto mostra que, neste movimento em que o farol está direcionado para o Brasil, a partir daquilo que vai acontecer na COP30, nós estamos apresentando um estado em que, de um lado, nós temos estes dados, este comportamento que eu acabo de expressar, mas, por outro, nós temos uma população carente, uma população que vive ainda na pobreza. Nós temos os piores indicadores do CAGED, que é o índice que mede o comportamento de emprego e desemprego no Brasil. Portanto, este movimento da NDC 3.0 nos abre uma possibilidade de que nós, como temos os melhores indicadores ambientais do Brasil, tenhamos oportunidade também de gerar emprego e renda para a nossa população a partir da atração de investimentos. Mas não queremos qualquer investimento. Investimentos que respeitem a floresta, investimentos que respeitem as populações tradicionais, investimentos que podem ter qualquer denominação, investimentos verdes, investimentos sustentáveis. O nome pouco importa, o que importa é o resultado. E o resultado que nós queremos, que estamos apresentando, é justamente apresentar à sociedade mundial um Estado que pode ser tratado como um exemplo de sustentabilidade dentro de um contexto em que a COP30 é um momento processual, do qual, em seguida, nós queremos continuar com essa pauta tão importante, tão cara para o Amapá, que é a pauta ambiental. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much. And of course, the Brazilian NDC is a strong example that in this current generation of NDCs, it's not just about mitigation and cutting emissions. We're seeing an increasing and important focus on adaptation and on a just transition. And so very happy to see the objectives of that just transition being taken forward in states like Amapa. Turning now to our next two panelists. First, Lord Mayor Lomax Smith from the City of Adelaide. Is it? Yep. Australia is, of course, yet to submit its NDC 3.0, and we're eagerly awaiting its submission. But considering what we've discussed today, what you've heard so far, not just today, but over the last couple of days, how are these positive trends in inclusion and multi-level action impacting the Australian NDC process as you've experienced it, and impacting, I suppose, climate action in Australia more broadly from your perspective? And what do you hope to see this year, but also in the coming years?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak. It's a great honour to be here, and I thank the organisers, the Secretariat and everyone for putting so much effort into making a very slick production. Thank you. I come from a city called Adelaide, and it's a capital city in one of the 8 subnational regional areas of Australia. And just to put it in context, we have 3 levels of government, and we haven't always agreed on climate action. And in fact, my experience is of non-collaboration, and the fact that the subnational tier of government made decisions which have put us in a position currently which makes us a leader in Australia and the world in terms of the transition. And that, I think, is possible because you don't need everyone to agree. If you have power at a subnational level, you can make change. And the changes that occurred are very significant for us because, just again to put it in context, Australia is twice the size of Europe. My state, my subnational area, is twice the size of Spain and of equivalent size to Germany and France combined. This is a very big area. We have 3 individuals per square metre. You know, it's a very big country. The population in the state is under 2 million. And we go it alone because we're a long way from the heart of the federal government. We can do a lot of things. So in 2007, our subnational government made a decision, I was part of that government, that we would legislate for climate change and action and net zero by 2050 with intermediate milestones. But more importantly, we wanted to have an energy transition. And one of the keys to the energy transition and the way you make things work in Australia is to actually find a way to make people want to help you. Implemented legislation, but made it possible for people to invest, the private sector and individuals, in short-term gains. So we freed up planning systems so that wind power was more easily installed. And that's why we have 40% of our energy produced by wind now. We worked hard to have incentives for solar power, and over 50% of our homes have rooftop solar. Of course, we have a lot of sun. You'd be crazy not to have it, frankly. But in terms of self-interest, what we did was generate a feed-in tariff by law, which forced our electricity companies to buy electricity from solar systems in homes at a much more advantageous rate than the residents could buy it. And the self-interest worked that we were obviously funding the electricity companies, but also the homeowners saw that they could make money because electricity is expensive. So self-interest is the way we move. And as a council, and my council is very conservative, not politically, but it's been there a long time. It's the oldest council in Australia, which in the scheme of things in Europe isn't very old. It's only 1840. But, and of course, we occupy land that has been owned and occupied and is still owned and occupied and will be into the future by Aboriginal people. So it's only a speck in time. But this is a council that has found ways also to incentivise activity. And so my message to everyone is don't be despondent if you can't get a multi-level partnership. You have enormous power. So as a council, we see that the imperative in our city at the moment is housing. And housing, you might say, well, what's that got to do with it? Well, if you're going to create housing, we make sure that every unit we produce has sensible facilities to conserve heat, although we mainly have to keep the heat out. We don't have to conserve it. And we're spending money on ways to keep our economy going. Now, what does that mean? I think that from my point of view, we get a social license by telling our shopkeepers and our restaurants that if we don't do something about the urban heat sink in our city, you will go out of business. And I frequently tell them their business has no future unless we can do something to cool our city. And so the next thing we have done is to democratize the data that we use to cool our city. What do I mean? We have a kind of massive computer program that you can log on, and it's like a game almost. It has 500 data sets. But the ones that people like to log on to are the temperature maps. And you can see that in the leafy, posh areas of my city, it gets cool at night. In the poorer areas, it never cools. And so those are the places where people are at high risk of early death. I live in the cottages in the poorer area, and I can actually look at the map at my house and see that my house does get cooler because I've planted in the garden. But most of the streets can be 8 to 10 degrees hotter. And in the daytime, I go out with my laser temperature gauge, driving everyone mad by pointing at the streets. And I can say outside my office, outside the town hall in the summer, it's often 55 degrees. It's absolutely incompatible with life. And with the social licenses that I'm spending millions and millions of dollars planting trees on the street, $5 million this year, just to plant trees on the street, because I know that on average it will be 8 degrees cooler. And the social license for councils, local government, spending money on cooling the streets, finding incentives, and we have a range of incentives that I won't talk to you about, but ways to actually retrofit buildings, to double glaze, to decarbonize, to make sure that we change from gas to electric heating, cooling, and also to cooking. Those incentives actually increase the value of the property. And every time we give away $1, we find that we have a property owner spending $8 to $9 as well. So it actually incentivizes investment. And I think that we should not be obsessed with multi-level partnerships. If you get 2 out of 3, or even do it alone, you can really make a difference. And remember, the sooner you start, the better.
Thank you so much, Lord Mayor. I'm going to be turning to Ms. Dora Marema from the South African Local Government Association. Same question. Given that South Africa has long been a leader in advancing just transitions within the UNFCCC process and at home in ensuring a consultative climate process which involves other levels of government, how are you seeing this current NDC 3.0 process? What has your engagement been, or what do you hope your engagement to be, and what should we expect from the NDC?
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and again, thank you to the organizers of this. It's my first time being at Daring Cities. I think the atmosphere is very encouraging and life-giving, so I'm very pleased to be here. Yes, definitely. In South Africa, we are seeing a shift. I think it's risky to say that because we are yet to see the byproduct. But I think judging by the processes that are currently underway and the appetite of the national government to engage all the other levels of government, it is very encouraging. I think there is a shift in terms of really realizing that local government is where the things are happening, is where the rubber hits the road, is where policy coincides with the triple challenge of poverty, inequality, and unemployment in South Africa. And we stand a good chance. I think the NDC is both a challenge and opportunity for us as a country. A challenge that would really challenge all of us to realize the practical part of the many brilliant policies and strategies that we have. We've got an Intergovernmental Relations Act that stipulates how the three levels of government need to relate to each other. And then as a result, we've got structures that have been set up to be able to make sure that intergovernmental relations is really happening. And I think recently we have seen, an intention in terms of getting subnationals to be active. We've seen the national government playing its role of providing an enabling environment, setting the tone for the various, interventions to happen, entering into bilateral agreements with other nations, facilitating at that level. And then the middle provincial level of government, we've seen really coming out to be able to support local government in terms of really implementing the change. And through that process, as I said, the Presidential Climate Commission, I think yesterday I mentioned, was started when it was launched by the President in 2022. It did not include local government. And there were some serious engagements to say it is a complete oversight, a complete hindsight that this commission, which is so important, and setting the tone for how South Africa is going to transition into a low carbon development, does not include local governments. And in 2022, my organization was then requested to nominate 2 mayors to be part of the commission. And since 2022, we have got 2 mayors that are representing the voice of local government, nominated by SALGA, my organization, and that means they have to report back and engage with the whole of local government so that our views are heard. And we have seen in this year, because the commission makes recommendations to the president in terms of what the NDC should contain, or what the just transition should look like. They set up the frameworks and they make the recommendations to the president and to the cabinet. And they have taken the lead in terms of engaging all sectors of society, all the levels of government, to be able to say, what would you like to see in the NDC? What are the challenges? And it was not a once-off, it was a staggered process, which we felt for the very first time our voices were beginning to be heard. And as I talk to you right now, last week there was a special commission meeting sitting, and we received the documents up front, so it's not like before where we are consulted, and there's a difference. We are engaged. Engagement means that you're given an opportunity, you are given the information to be able to make a meaningful contribution. So you are not just signing off. So this week, the coming week, is a deadline for the public consultation on the recommendations of the commission to the president. We have got a parallel process with a national department that is responsible for compiling and writing up the NDC itself. We together with our partners, ITLE, in South Africa, took a long shot of approaching them, saying we are embarking on the process of hosting town hall co-ops throughout the country with our mayors, who are really could not wait, because there are people expect them to act to be able to mitigate the impacts of climate change. We would like to invite you to come on board. We know that you are busy with the process of compiling the NDC, and we believe this town hall COPs will become a brilliant opportunity and platform for you to test out whether some of the content that you are putting in the NDC is really what people on the ground are actually talking about. And to our pleasant surprise, they really agreed, and they put it down on paper to make a commitment that they will take the NDC consultation with us on the town hall COP process. I know it is a short space of time, but this has never happened, and we are super excited, because that is the tone, I think, of the national government that we're seeing. Last year, in 2024, 25, 26 of August, we again took a long shot to request national government for the South African Local Government Association to become a secretariat of the Just Energy Transition Municipal Council. So we lobbied a year before that for the COP in Egypt for local government to have a ring-fenced portion of the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan in our country. and we did that successfully. Following that, we then took another long shot and said, we as the South African local government representing 257 municipalities in the country, we believe we stand we are in a better position to run that ring-fenced portion of the just energy transition. We had our inaugural council meeting sitting last week, chaired by the CEO of the South African Local Government Association, and it is work that we've never done. It's uncharted territory, but I have hope and believe that what will end up in the NDC is going to reflect at least the intention that our government has put forward. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to seeing what that NDC looks like and hoping that it truly reflects the contributions and priorities of your organization and its members. I believe now we will be turning to a video message from a part of this panel who could not be here in person today, the Mayor of Athens, Mayor Steve Patterson, who is also the President of the National League of Cities in the United States.
Distinguished colleagues and guests of the 2025 Daring Cities Forum at the Bonn Climate Conference, I'm Steve Patterson, and I proudly serve as the mayor of a U.S. city of Athens in the state of Ohio. I also have the honor of serving as the president of the National League of Cities, the United States' oldest and largest local government network, which advocates on behalf of more than 19,000 cities, towns, and villages across the United States. NLC's mission is to relentlessly advocate for and protect the interests of 200 million people by influencing federal policy, strengthening local leadership, and delivering impactful community solutions. It is an honor to be invited to ICLEI. I look forward to attending the Bonn Conference, where I'm eager to engage with cities from around the world, cities like yours. They're playing strong leadership roles through bold and ambitious local climate efforts. Daring Cities' role as a local track at the UNFCCC has never been more important. Climate changes result in severe societal disruptions, cost, and adversity, which threatens human health, economic stability, and ecological integrity. The need for ambitious and accelerated climate change mitigation is urgent. Severe weather events and natural disasters are escalating in scope, scale, and frequency, with devastating impacts on people, infrastructure, and natural resources. A recent study showed that most people in the U.S. worry that their local area might be harmed by air pollution, electric outages, water pollution, droughts, extreme heat, and flooding. In the wake of the unprecedented rollback of federal support for clean energy initiatives, it now falls largely on local leaders to find ways to advance climate action. Local governments have the biggest impact on people's daily lives, and municipalities have the intimate view of how climate change affects their residents' lives and livelihoods. As a local leader, I can attest that many cities remain committed to climate action and the transition to clean energy, and that is unwavering. U.S. cities are exploring creative funding streams and public-private partnerships to address federal funding gaps. They are digging into their municipal policies, capital budgets, to force greater efficiencies and identify investments that allow for solutions with multiple benefits. We know many U.S. cities, states, and companies seek a federal partner for climate efforts because clean energy is an important economic driver, bringing new jobs and economic development to communities. The National League of Cities is continuing conversations with Congress, advocating for a continued investment in clean energy through tax credits, and making sure that approved federal funding is available to communities. As the voice of thousands of local officials, we are adamant about the federal support for clean energy. It's necessary to ensure affordable, reliable, secure energy sources that create jobs at home for Americans, no matter what their politics. In my city of Athens, Ohio, we are continuing to forge ahead on climate action, and we are all in for clean energy. Leading by example, the City of Athens installed solar on several city properties. We launched the Solar Automated Permit Processing Plus an innovative web-based platform that helps streamline municipal solar permitting and making it faster, easier, and more affordable for residents to install solar panels. I want to share my appreciation for the Daring Cities work that you do. I am intrigued by the Community Climate Town Hall initiative and congratulate ICLEI and the LGMA for ensuring local efforts can be formally recognized. Thank you.
Great to hear from the US as an example of what, as Mayor Lomax-Smith said, cities and states can do on their own as well to advance climate action in their own jurisdictions. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for your attention, our distinguished panel for their contributions, and I'll hand back over to Eunice for the next part of the agenda. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you Asif, thank you panelists. I know I stand between all of you and a coffee break, but I do have some important logistical announcements for the next part of the day, so if you can bear with me for just 2 minutes. So we'll be going into a coffee break for about 20 minutes, and then at 11:10, we'll be starting 4 parallel deep dive discussions. So just to explain what those 4 topics are and where they'll be located. 3 of them will be on kind of a regional focus, looking at some of the topics we've already heard our panelists this morning. The first will be a North America regional panel. We have representatives from subnational governments in Canada and the United States. That will be in this room, in the back, in the round table. The second is a deep dive on South Africa. That will be in a room outside of this auditorium to the left, and there'll be staff that can guide you to that room as well. The third table will be a deep dive on Brazil. This will be a discussion primarily held in Portuguese, although there will be some staff attending who can help with some interpretation as well. That will be in a room that's upstairs in this venue. So if you would like to join that, at the staircase just outside the auditorium, you can wait there, and staff will guide you to that discussion. And the fourth will be on the Town Hall COPS initiative. We'll be hearing from a number of local and subnational government representatives who have already hosted Town Hall COPS, some of their learning. So for those of you who are interested in hosting one as well, get to hear about their experiences. That will be here in this room. Again, all of those will be starting at 11:10. Now, before I release you for the coffee break, we would like to take a family photo of the entire Daring Cities community that we've gathered here this morning to celebrate this. And we'd like that everyone can stand, and we're going to take a shot of everyone in the room. And so if our panelists and those speakers who are here can line up in the front, and partners, panelists, partners, also panelists for later in the day, please, everyone welcome to the front. And the rest of the Daring Cities community, if you can kind of try to make your way a bit more towards the middle. So we're going to take a couple of photos, maybe just ask everyone, especially in the back, try to pack in, get as close to the middle as possible. We want everyone's friendly faces in there. So, yeah. Take a couple photos. Yeah. Wait, one more. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your coffee break. The next sessions will start at 11:10.
Belém é Belém é potência. Belém é potência. Ancestrais, não só
adequate implementation of policies. So we will have different entry points to that, and I will introduce each speakers and their role and then ask the questions towards, and I hope we'll have then an exciting panel discussion in the short time we'll be given. So I'll start with you, Mr. Xu Liu. You are the Director of Ecology and Environment Bureau of the China-Singapore-Taijin Eco-City Administrative Committee. With over 15 years of experience in eco-city development, expertise in sustainable ecosystem conservation, environmental protection, and climate action strategies, I have the following question to you. What is the Chinese approach to urban nature strategies and policies? How are these advancing local partnership with their cities? You have amazing examples, so over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to have me here. It's an honor to have this opportunity to show our progress in Tianjin City. In my opinion, ecological civilization is China's framework to harmonizing economic growth and also environmental stewardship, which aims to transfer industry structure and consumption mode into energy efficient and also low carbon system, and also prioritize the circular industry, renewable energy to cut the pollution and also to boost the ecological quality, and also to embed the conservation awareness through the society. And where I come from is Tianjin City, which I think is a life sample for the Chinese ambition. Tianjin City is a national cooperate pilot project which supported by Singapore and the Chinese government, which started from 2008, and it started in land which is uninhabitable land with polluted water and non-arable barren land. So we started very difficult. And to achieve the goals, practical, replicable, and scalable in everywhere. So the experts from both China and Singapore have set up a series of, we call it KPIs, indicators, to make our goals, such as including green buildings, renewable energy, carbon emission intensity, and so on. So I'm going to make a small introduction in 4 aspects. First one is how we heating the land. As I said, where we start is with a lot of polluted water and also barren land. So the first project we start is to remediate the wastewater pond, which is have like 40 years old there, and nothing grows there. So we spent more than 3 years and 1 billion Chinese yuan to do the remediation. And now it's like the most beautiful lake in Tianjin. And also the value around the lake. We spend like 1 million and then increase the value to 15 million now. So it's a good example. And also we do a lot of soil revival. And now we have like 40 parks there. And also the greenery coverage is more than 50 and attracts more than 100 migratory birds to spot in our site. And also the plant species grows from the 66 from the very beginning to now is 260. So that's a large leap. And the second part I would like to say is the green building. The building part is the most important one in cities concerning about carbon emission, construction, and also operating phases, and also to encourage the private sector. We say that we increases the capacity ratio from 3, and we have the first PHI certificate high-rise building in China. And also, the second one, the third one is the traffic. Technical City, we start from 0, and we want to build a green trip city. So it's different from Europe. We have a more intense the density, population density. So together with our partners from Singapore, we develop our own mode. So we call it eco-cell, eco-neighbor, and eco-district. Each cell has like 400 by 400 area and contains like 3,000 to 5,000 people living there. And 4 cells make a neighborhood. The neighborhoods will be input with clinic, parks, schools, together with a good, beautiful pedestrian and bicycle lane, so we can cut the long distance daily traffic, and people can walk to everywhere in 5 minutes. And also, recently, in these years, we promote the new energy vehicle. All the parking lots are able to have their charging pole there. So we have in total like 60%, more than 60% of green trips there. And also for the industry, we have introduced green electricity with a good price for all the companies in Technical City. So our practice has showed the possibility for cities to balance the economic growth and also the environmental friendly. And the population has grown from 2,000 to 180,000 people in Technical City. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I love how you say that's all. I think that was already the replication, scalability, and practical approach, exactly as you mentioned, really going from a derated land into a livable land. I think that was an amazing example. Thank you so much for that. Lynn, I go over to you. You are EBRD's Associate Director and Deputy Head of the Sustainable Infrastructure Group. With your experience on climate finance, you are one of the architects of EBRD's Green Cities, which is an ever-growing facility mobilizing over €5 billion to date to tackle environmental challenges through investments and policy reforms in cities across the portfolio. How does EBRD see the importance of investment in urban nature finance solution as a tool to reach climate goals? Over to you.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to this panel and for that very nice introduction. So, as Serena said, I lead the Green Cities program, and it's now entering its 10th year of operation and has been and continues to be a success. And one of the reasons it is successful is so simple. It's because we connect planning. So this is these Green City Action Plans, which one, I know I was listening to the representative from Izmir. So Izmir is a EBRD Green City, so we developed a Green City Action Plan there, but we link it with investment. So it's having skin in the game, connecting those 2 points, which is very important. So just some sort of high-level numbers on what's been achieved. So I'm from a bank. It's about financing. So to date, EBRD has invested over $3 billion in 100 green city projects, which span the EBRD region. So we are a regional development bank. So this region goes from Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, where we have investments there, right through to Agadir in Morocco, and down into North Africa, and we are now expanding into sub-Saharan Africa. And I think what has come as a byproduct of green cities that we didn't really anticipate, it's this network. We have a network of 60 cities, and it's the power of that network. So yes, I mean, like all cities, banks, city networks, we recognize that nature and biodiversity loss are material risks to economies, to financial systems, and most importantly, the well-being of people. What I do, it's all about improving people's lives. So where we start is planning. So the planning is through the tool that we use in green cities is the Green City Action Plans. So we work with cities to identify their priority environmental challenges. We have stakeholder engagement, so citizens, any other interested parties are involved. And from that, we identify investments and policy actions. And within these investments, there is more focus on, when we started, it was all about mitigation. There is now much more focus on resilience, and within that, nature-based solutions. So in those Green City Action Plans, we can have actions identified such as wetland restoration, coastal river buffers, green corridors. So this is increasingly coming into what we do. So we've got the plan, we've got that Green City Action Plan, but just to repeat, for us, it's about action, it's about delivering. So with nature positive solutions, it's slightly different, and we spend time making sure that the actual value of that nature is visible to investors. So one way that we do this is by helping cities and policymakers to translate their ecosystem service into economic terms. The next area is finance. It's bridging that gap between ambition, what needs to be achieved, and investability. And nature-based solutions are complex. They're complex in terms of they're small, they can be fragmented, and in many cases, they are not bankable. But this is what MDBs are all about. We're not here to serve easy options. So how does EBRD address this? First of all, we do have an appetite for small deals. So typically, the minimum ticket size is about 5 million, but we can tranche a loan, into 2 to make it even smaller than that. We bundle investments, and I think most importantly, we include them in larger infrastructure projects. And just to give you a couple of examples, we did a project in Chisinau in Moldova, which incorporates floodwater management and also has included a green corridor. And in Gelmin in Morocco, a wastewater treatment plant that's been financed now irrigates green spaces. I was in Bishkek last week, and we're talking there with the municipality about using irrigating the green spaces. At the moment, they're using clean water, and we want to use water from the wastewater treatment plant for that. So another important aspect of what we do is this phrase of de-risking projects, blended finance. So EBRD, we will mobilize grants, concessional loans, guarantees. We also have technical assistance support to support project preparation and implementation. So we have a whole toolkit at our disposal. Something else that we are very mindful of is that cities are different. Cities are different in terms of their size. We heard from the mayor of Adelaide that the region that she covers is as large as Spain. So they're different in size, they're different in their implementation capacity, and they are different in their financial creditworthiness. Many cities are not creditworthy. But EBRD, we are proud that we are flexible, so that we have no one set of rules for these diverse cities. So typically, the range of financial options that we have range from public sector just lending to the government, and then on lending to the city or the city utility company. Then we have this important bit in the middle that EBRD does very well. So, and just bear in mind that we're in emerging markets. So this is lending to the city or the city-owned utility company on a non-recourse basis, or getting security from various forms. And then finally, we work with the private sector, purely the private sector, or involving the government through PPPs. So the name of the game for EBRD, and I cannot stress it more, it's flexibility. It's demand-driven, it's working with the cities. And I think on that, throughout yesterday and today, we've talked about this multi-level action, and EBRD supports this wholeheartedly, because it's very rarely, in my experience, that you do not have to work with the government. So for us, working with the government, working with the cities, working with the regions, that's what it's all about. My final point that I want to make is about partnerships. So as has been made by a number of speakers, we are in challenging times, and there is no more pressing time for us really to work together. In terms of the work that I do, I have seen this partnerships. It is growing. I am now working. EBRD is now working with far more partners than we used to, and these includes, GIZ, BMZ, the city networks, ICLEI and C40 and GCOM, and I think we really have to continue in that spirit. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lynn. And I really take note of that power of networks and the power of cities that come together to drive the action.
And UN Habitat.
Thank you very much.
How could I forget? You're sitting right next to me.
Maybe that was the obvious, that's why. Thank you very much for that. We have as next speaker, Nancy Matea Bowen. Dear Nancy, you are an incredible person and have an incredible bio. I've read it in advance. You're the first Black and Haitian American female commissioner of Coral Springs, elected in 2020, then re-elected in 2024. We all know what has happened 2020 and 2024. I haven't said anything. From environmental advocacy to disaster relief, you have seen and responded to major natural disasters, including Hurricane Irma, Michael Dorian. As leader, you have led sustainability and resilience efforts in your city, supporting small businesses, but also communities, and exploring solar manufacturing, technology hubs, and other community industries. Guided by your core values of community service, philanthropies, and stewardship, you seek to amplify those voices of those community members towards a better future and a better urban future for Coral Springs. With that in mind, advancing your environmental action in political charged environment, bridging that what community matters really to communities. Tell us your story of how you bring community action into that policy making and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, sitting on the stage, I'm truly inspired. I know where to get my money from. Thank you. And I know who to mimic my projects from. Thank you. So for folks in the room, first and foremost, can I get some energy in this room? We're here to fight climate. Come on. Every time I come to one of these convenings, I'm so incredibly inspired by thought partners in the room and bringing back solutions to my community. And with that being said, I can't create policies and regulations without creating thought partners and people around me. So that is how I am able to bring community into this conversation. Community is my guiding light. They are my core compass. They're the ones to tell me what is working, what is not working. So I think I take their criticism and perspective very, very seriously. So as an elected official, it's super important to hear from our community members, and based on their perspective, that's how I create those solutions. So to your point, to your question, a lot of the policies that I've been able to create is through listening sessions and making sure community is at the center of those conversations. One thing that I'm super proud of leaving ICLEI is I'm excited about really hosting a COP30 town hall and making sure that they are in the center of that conversation, even though they are unable to go to Brazil or unable to go to other places to provide their feedback. So hopefully within our town hall, we have some tangible action items that we can bring to Brazil with us and really ask and advocate for what we want to see in the upcoming years as we combat climate change. As you all may or may not know, I live in Florida, a place where we are directly impacted by climate change. We are facing sea level rise, we are facing displacement, we are facing all the things that everybody here is talking about 10 times over. Because why? We live in a peninsula, we live in an island particular area, subtropic area, we get water vector diseases from the heat, we get severe weather events, hurricanes, and then lastly, we're dealing with displacement with climate gentrification. And so we are ground zero for climate change. And so what does that mean? It means that we need to make sure that we are amplifying the stories of the people who are directly impacted. And sometimes our federal and state government does not allow that. So we rely on a lot of public-private partnerships. And through ICLEI, we've been able to use their Clear Path tool to really address our emissions and curbing our emissions. And that has been a very powerful tool, being that we are unable to hire on as much staff to address our climate needs. Our sustainability office is a team of one and me, and we work very, very hard. And through our climate action plan, we are very, very aggressive. Our city has committed to Race to Zero. We have committed to really curbing our emissions by 2050. I was really ambitious at first and saying, let's curb our emissions by 2030, but my council was like, whoa, wait a minute. We have also created a space for businesses to adopt to a business-friendly model. And so with this business-friendly model, we say if you voluntarily adopt into being sustainable, we will curb your taxes. And that doesn't mean you don't pay any taxes, it just means you don't pay as much taxes as everybody else. And that has been successful in some aspect, but we are trying to get more businesses to come on. We are in close proximity to a highway, and so we are attracting solar tech hubs to our community because we know that is what's going to drive the economy, but also allow us to be a sustainability hub. We're not there yet, but I hope within my tenure, I'm leaving that legacy so whomever comes behind me, my succession plan, will be able to carry on the legacy that we've created thus far. So community continues to play a vital role in how we move forward in Coral Springs. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Nancy, and I really hope there will be another re-election. I'm not biased. Thanks a lot. Anna Hal, over to you as our last speaker, and I know we have limited time, but I think we're making it. You are the head of the public affairs for energy division at Alfa Lava, a global leader in sustainable technology for heat transfer, separation, and fluid handling, technologies that are necessary for basically all industries in the cities that save energy, clean water, and reduce emissions. So we are having one red line here, I can see that. Considering energy efficiency as the biggest challenge also that cities are facing, what solutions are you offering as a private sector representative, and what are your expectations from local leaders on how to get engaged so to really drive the implementation, accelerate that? Over to you, thank you.
Thank you so much for that nice presentation, and thank you so much for having me here representing the private sector. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for public sector to collaborate with private sector. I've been to many of these meetings, including COP, New York Climate Week, in the negotiations here in the UNFCCC, and every meeting says the money exists, but we need to unlock it. And it's only through collaboration, private and public sector, we can achieve this. And I think the examples from EBRD here was super, super good. I would like to draw your attention to 3 points. Energy efficiency is crucial. Energy efficiency is the first fuel. And that's the only way we can reach our targets for 2030. Hey guys, it's 4.5 years to 2030. We're supposed to decarbonize the world by 50%. Have you done it in your cities? Hand up. Ah, good, perfect, some are perfect. Yeah, big applause. And I would like to lift 3 points. One, we need to view energy in a holistic view. We need to view energy on a system level. And you as cities, you are such important decision makers. You're such an important change agents in this transition. For example, we can use our electricity wise. We have some challenges with the electricity grid in some places. Many places, for example, we can use heat pumps that uses 3 to 4 times less electricity than other. There are also super smart, proven, scalable solutions, for example, for district heating, where we have super smart ways of reusing waste heat. Did you know, in Europe alone, we have 2,800 terawatt hours of energy that is wasted every year. That means we could heat all the buildings and all the tap water in Europe just by using the waste heat. In Sweden, Helsingborg, we have done it since 1974, reusing the heat from a chemical plant called Kemira. It's heating the city. It's actually saving 130,000 tons of emissions every year, and has been doing so since 1974. It's quite impressive. Also on district cooling. I mean, cooling is the most energy, or the growing energy demand in buildings these days. It's the elephant in the room. Looking on district cooling, bringing some examples. For example, in Toronto, where we have the deep lake water cooling system, by cooling 180 buildings in the city, they are decreasing the electricity demand by 80%. It's cool. The same goes for Paris and Barcelona. By cooling the city by the River Seine in Paris and by the seawater in Barcelona, we are halving the energy consumption comparing with traditional systems, and we're also halving the water consumption. And right, we need clean water. Super, super impressive. So this holistic view on energy system, you as a city, you are in the midst of this. You make the decisions, you give the permits, you have your planning, you do concessions for your energy company. You have the power. Secondly, I would like to draw your attention to industrial competitiveness. I was in partnership with the Commission last week and IEA organizing the 10th annual global conference from IEA on energy efficiency. And just in the beginning of the conference, they came out with a big report. And did you know, if we compare industries with their peers, the industries that use less energy compare with the most energy. The companies that are using the most energy in this IEA comparison, they have 3 times the energy bills than other industry peers. Can you imagine what that do to competitiveness? The companies needs to create workspaces, job creation in your cities. So this collaboration with cities are essential, and you're in the midst of it. Also looking back on district heating, a consultant report from Kemira showed that going into district energy in the city of Kemira created 1,200 jobs, according to the consultant report. So this is energy efficiency, job creation. It's fostering industrial competitiveness. It's really something we need to do together. And for the third, I would really like to draw the attention to you and your superpower in the cities, public procurement. What a tool, what a power you have, and how little you are using it. I'm sorry, coming from the private sector, but you can really leverage this tool. Just in EU, I think it's 2 billion euro every year going through public procurement. Can you imagine what you can do by activating the demand, by actually putting your demand in public procurement and accelerating the green transition, the clean technologies, and foster energy efficiency? You have the power. So I echo what my friends say here. It's all about collaboration. It is all about public-private collaboration. The money's there, the solutions exist, they're ready to be implemented at scale and speed, and you have the power.
Thank you so much. That was electrifying. Awesome. And I think with that, I already have to conclude because we have wonderful closing remarks from someone exciting, and I hope is already in the room. And I think a really, really big round of applause again for all those 4 speakers. We took note of what actions need to be there to really drive implementation and drive them home. So thanks a lot for that panel.
So, colleagues, we will be starting now in our last session of the morning part before lunch. We wanted to use this opportunity to have back to our discussions to what we expect from Belém, politically, but also conceptually, but also what it looks like to go to an Amazonian city, what it looks like to be in a city who is desperate for collaboration, partnership, and improvisation of a new way of life, harmony with nature, and of course together with the international collaboration that we're all seeking for. I'm delighted that this session will be moderated by my colleague Rodrigo Corradi, Deputy Director of ICLEI South America, and our guests are Niels Annen, State Secretary of German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, Philip Young, COP30 Urban Solutions Envoy, and André Godinho, Extraordinary Secretary for COP30 from City of Belém, do Pará, Brazil. And I would like to invite you to stage. Don't forget to have your headsets. And we look forward to an exciting dialogue. Thanks a lot. Yes, exactly. That would be good. André? And Philip? Yeah. Good. Corrado, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a pleasure and a responsibility to finish this morning, isn't it? To have the opportunity to be with you all once more, to tackle a little bit of what we have been seeing this morning, this high-level panels that we have achieved until now. I believe that we're able to attract us in so many different levels that try to combine our mission to make this agenda feasible and be able to be implemented in the territory. So if this concept is the concept that we are trying to achieve, to see that the climate agenda that is the sole basis of a whole concept of an implementation and action agenda that all of our organizations are trying to implement, I believe that would be so interesting to have your perspective in that sense, to see and to perceive from your eyes and your words what's going to be the opportunities that we are facing right now in terms of implementation. And so I think once and again, our panel here present, I'd like to emphasize and to remind what Yunus had told. We're going to have some of the speeches be done in Portuguese, so if you need it, please take the opportunity to use this time right now to take your equipment. And thank you so much for ICLEI Board Secretariat and the organizers to be able to have this translation be done in Portuguese at this event. So I'd like to start, Secretary Niels. We have the new composition of the German government. So new beginnings. Considering the new beginnings that we have so far, how do you perceive the implementation of the new indices considering this multi-level perspective that we are tracking this morning?
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, thank you. We try this? Okay, works better. Thank you very much, and thanks for the interest and for having me. Speaking of new beginnings, yes, for some it's a new beginning. Some stayed in the government. Germany, if you're not so familiar with our system, we had one exception, but is always having governments based on coalition agreements. As we are Germans, we like to be very concrete and very strict and very reliable. So you can read the coalition agreement, which is the product of a negotiation between the parties that are forming our new government. And I think the good news is that Germany made a clear pledge to stay committed. And you know, that's what I think rightly so is expected from Germany. But you mentioned the geopolitical situation. We can take nobody for granted anymore. And as a German, I say, unfortunately, if I look back at the election campaign, which was very nasty, that includes Germany. So it is important to say we reaffirm our commitments to our international obligations. I think that in itself is important. Knowing that also in our country there are those forces who are trying to ignore the effects of climate change, even question the very scientific proof of what we are seeing. However, a majority really forcefully supports what we are doing. And I think we are very happy to have our Brazilian friends here and looking forward to hear from you. Germany, in very practical terms, is trying to make everything possible that Belém will be a success. And not because it's Brazil and Belém, but because it's our own interest to do so. And I think talking about the questions of the central fields of work, I want to say that our ministry, German Development Corporation, has been working with numerous countries over the last years to update their NDCs, to support that process. But we also took a look at the role of cities and metropolitan areas. And I believe, yes, there is a big debate, but the implementation really matters. And that's why we have been supporting the Daring Cities and the CHAMP initiative. We intend to do that. I myself, I'm from a big city, from Hamburg, and I think the level of ambition of city governments to implement the Paris Agenda is crucial for our success. No, not every city has the same implementation capacity as a prosperous city that we are in here in the Köln-Bonn metropolitan area or my hometown, Hamburg. So we need to support cities and encourage local governments to allocate the necessary funds, also to support and financing, but really to shed more light on that. And I think that being both federal republics, if you will, you have a different system, but Brazil also has that federalism enshrined in its DNA. Maybe it's really a perfect match, and we are very much looking forward for doing that. However, last sentence, we don't underestimate the challenge for the negotiators, for the conveners, but also the challenge for us. Because if you would have come to Germany like 5-6 years ago, the climate agenda was very strong. It was a priority. Today, we need to fight. Also, to give enough attention to the topics that are, I think, all uniting us here these days in Bonn.
Thank you, Secretary. And I believe that when you, first of all, you get the best segue to talk about federalism in terms of the two countries that we are specifically talking about, Brazil and Germany, but also the way in which you perceive that something that during the debates the whole week here in Bonn, during every space that we have been achieved, our agenda, how geopolitics have changed so much in a moment that we so much need to focus on implementations, to be together, to be working as one in one fundamental direction that we need to move forward. How this process has been actually in the global stage, being not only demise in some cases, but for sure to be in a really rough path. Fantastic that the German coalition in this government was able to continue the path, but trying to emphasize how difficult it is to have this focus. And Philip, I believe that when we're talking about working together, this perception of how we can use multi-level in that question of how gonna implement the Brazil presidency, talking specific not only during the NDCs about climate federalism, that for those that are not from federal countries could for sure be interpreted as a multi-level call of action of implementation of the climate agenda, but specifically in this past weeks, month, the concept of mutirão, of this bottom-up and transversal process to go ahead with this agenda calls a lot in our sense of implementation territorially. Your position combines in that way. It's not every COP that has an special envoy that try to deal specifically with the local team. So we not only appreciate and recognize Brazilian presidency in that sense, but would like to listen a little bit about what your concept of this pathway that the Brazilian presidency is trying to demonstrate by its actions concerning multi-level engagement towards the COP30.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I think, we have to look at this process both as an opportunity and as a risk as well. I start with the opportunity. I think it's absolutely great that, the opportunity comes with starting with Brazil being the host country of COP. I think it's very interesting the fact that the COP is being realized in Belém, a city in the middle of the forest. And as André, the president of COP, made a statement right in the beginning of his nomination, he said, this is a COP in the forest, but it's not only about forests, it's about cities. So this is the early start of his engagement as a president. So this is very important. The opportunity comes also, I'm a strong believer of institutions, of course, but I also believe in the role of people. And then the role of people starts with André, who's a guy who's very sensitive to cities, to architecture, and he's absolutely engaged in the implementation issue of the urban agenda. Second, in terms of people, you have a minister of cities who's absolutely engaged. We have the luck of having a ministry of cities in Brazil, and the minister of cities absolutely engaged with the concern of implementation agenda as well. And third, third but not least, we have Ana Cláudia Rosbach, who is a Brazilian, who heads this UN entity called UN Habitat, who is also incredibly engaged in all this conversation about implementation. Well, I jumped into the risks. What are the risks? We are under threat, of course. The multilateral architecture is under threat for reasons that I do not need to explain. And if we are held hostage of an agenda that is in a stalemate, And I believe that we have many risks of having an agenda that is captured by the media, that is not evolving, that is not going forward as fast as we can. We need to have another agenda, and this agenda is the urban agenda. For obvious reasons, we are, well, starting from Brazil, we are 85%, 87% urban. 87% of our population is in urban settings. It's a huge lot of people. And of course, we are at the front line of disasters, starting with Porto Alegre that you all see in the media. So it was a terrible thing. So, and we have to, I've been trying to convey as much as possible whenever I speak in public that we need to think of concepts in which we place the urban agenda, not only in the action agenda, but also in the normative agenda. Well, this is a difficult topic, but I think it's a necessary, even if we do not get consensus. It has to be there. There's a big animal on the table, disturbing everyone, because there's no a future without without cities at the core of implementation of actions and the deep thinking. I've been talking to many people around here. One of the ideas that people, for instance, the people that are leading CHAMP is to make the case of CHAMP going into the forefront of the normative agenda. I don't think that's absolutely wonderful, of course, but it might place risks because CHAMP has a huge membership of 75, which is huge, but it's not enough for consensus, right? So one alternative architecture would be perhaps placing the new urban agenda together with UNFCCC, not a parallel instrument, but a convergent institute. This is some thoughts that I leave with you because we are on the road to Belém, and this is something that perhaps all of us need to think. And well, I'd like to take this opportunity of thank you, Germany, for being so much present in Brazil with GIZ. I'm part of the ecosystem. I see, I am not beneficiary, but I see so many people, so many institutions who benefit from the GIZ presence. And this is all the more fantastic presence. One, perhaps you said you want to be precise, you want to be reliable, and you have been, but I want to make a short comment on an operational issue that I think it would be useful, take advantage of your early days in your position. The fact is that it's not meant only for GIZ, but many development cooperation agencies in Brazil do provide funding, but not necessarily to the right ecosystem. I think we have a huge gap, a huge market and government failure in the layer of project structuring. In the end, many development corporations structure a number of projects that die on the shelves without implementation. So this is my only suggestion for your mandate in Brazil. I think it not applies only to you, but all the environment of development cooperation agencies that are present in Brazil.
Thank you, Philip. And I believe that when you correlate the geopolitical that we are talking with the Secretary and go into the perspective of implementation, it's interesting to take this approach going directly to the city that is in the focus of this process. Andre, I've been witness of a full engagement, especially I have the pleasure to be able to see the Belém City Climate Plan being now just released, and the engagement of the city government and the civil society in Belém that is historically so engaged socially in the city. I'd like to ask you, considering the social elements that, and we've been talking about this in this past 2 days, there is a kind of crashing course of how global can fit in the locality of Belém. I'd like to your thoughts of how do you perceive the capabilities in terms of opportunities that the city of Belém is seeing in that matter, and how we, as a global society that try to support and advance that, for sure they're going to be incremental, but need to show some teeth during the next COP, how do you perceive those opportunities arising and landing in Belém?
Perfect. I will excuse, but I will talk in Portuguese because I feel more comfortable to talk some things. But first, in English, I would like to do the same thing as you do in being thankful to Germany as all the help that the country is given to Belém specifically, because the plan together with ICLEI have a significant work together with Germany. So thank you very much for that. Eu acredito que o primeiro ponto que deve ser considerado e a primeira palavra que deve ser tratada quando falamos de COP, para começar essa conversa, é legado. O legado que a COP está trazendo para uma região que precisava de transformações significantes. Do ponto de vista político, o Brasil tem uma esfera de 3 poderes, federal, estadual e municipal, e eu posso citar de um grande esforço do governo do Estado, que o Pará hoje é o único estado do Brasil que tem dentro da sua rede de ensino a educação ambiental. Então, isso já é, de fato, transformador se nós estamos falando de futuro. Acho que esse já é um grande avanço que a gente deve considerar. Do ponto de vista de percepção de cidade, numa reunião que estávamos agora há pouco, eu falei que tem sido um grande MBA esse processo. A gestão, o prefeito assumiu, o prefeito Igor Normando, a quem estou representando aqui, assumiu há pouco mais de 6 meses, né, no dia 1º de janeiro desse ano, e enfrentamos um desafio grande, porque recebemos apenas um pequeno evento para acontecer em novembro, que chama COP30, não sei se alguns conhecem, e tivemos uma missão de esse alinhamento junto com o governo do Estado, com o governo federal, de preparar a cidade, mas não só preparar a cidade do ponto de vista de infraestrutura, mas de entrar na agenda climática de fato e compreender, e é isso que o mundo precisa compreender estando em Belém, como esses impactos climáticos tocam na vida de fato de pessoas. E eu acho que vale lembrar também que a Amazônia não é só árvore. 70% da população da Amazônia vive em cidades. Belém é uma metrópole com mais de 1,5 milhão de habitantes que enfrenta inúmeros problemas. Então, é a chance e a oportunidade do mundo compreenderem de fato e saírem um pouco de janelas mais abertas ou espectros mais abertos para irem para a discussão onde os problemas de fato acontecem. E como o Felipe falou, e eu disse há pouco também, acho que nós temos uma oportunidade única, junto com o governo federal, de ter um Ministério de Cidades e ter um ministro que é paraense. E pelo que eu tenho visto aqui, eu acho que nunca foi tão incluída na pauta da COP, e ontem, numa reunião com o embaixador André, esse compromisso de trazer as discussões dos subnacionais para dentro da agenda da COP, que é a chance de discutirmos de fato as soluções. Quando nós entramos, assumimos a gestão, o prefeito assumiu, fica aquele sentimento de o que temos que fazer, porque é muita coisa, e tivemos a grata surpresa de receber o plano de ação climática feito pelo ICLEI, que torna o nosso trabalho muito mais fácil, porque é um guia muito objetivo de onde nós temos que solucionar os problemas, de que forma, como e com quem. E o com quem é muito importante nesse momento, porque trabalho nenhum se faz sozinho. E se a gente está pretendendo transformar o futuro do mundo, e a gente está falando de impactos climáticos, que assim como Porto Alegre, o Pará e Belém também sofrem inúmeras problemáticas climáticas. Existe um estudo que, tenho repetido, Belém tem uma previsão de ser a 2ª cidade mais quente do mundo até 2050, se nada for feito. Para surpresa de alguns, apesar de ser uma cidade na Amazônia, é uma cidade pouco arborizada, que é fruto do subdesenvolvimento e do desenvolvimento desordenado das periferias, principalmente. Então, é uma cidade pouquíssimo arborizada, é uma das piores do Brasil, inclusive, e nós estamos com um plano que foi anunciado, junto com o BNDES, de um grande plano de arborização, um investimento muito alto. Foi dito aqui por uma prefeita, eu acho que é de Adelaide, né, que ela gasta, esse ano, acho que foram 5 milhões de dólares em arborização. Belém também está recebendo um plano enorme de investimento. Então, o plano de ação climática tem sido uma grande diretriz para a gente enxergar como solucionar esses problemas, além, volto a dizer, da questão da transformação que a COP está trazendo para a cidade, para que seja palco, e eu acho que a população de Belém está entrando totalmente nesse tema, e é uma chance de uma cidade na Amazônia ser vista aos olhos do mundo, porque eu acho que ninguém sabia onde era Belém, mas agora sabe, vão saber, e é uma chance de nós termos um mundo, e o mundo todo discutindo o clima aonde ele deve ser discutido, porque na Amazônia está, talvez, uma das grandes soluções para o futuro e para os problemas climáticos que a gente vem enfrentando.
Thank you, Andrea, and I believe that your perspective allow us to make the connection that to talk about climate when people are feeling and seeing the correlation of the changes and the emergency that we are all living. I believe it's an interesting segue to try to demonstrate how we want to perceive those changes, how we want to go beyond and to understand what we could do in an event that we can not only demonstrate that is an annual event to gather those that are concerned, but in an event that means change in terms of implementation. And in that matter, Secretary Jens, I would like to ask you what you perceive that would be, in terms of the multi-level climate agenda, would be an interesting or necessary outcome coming from COP30 in Belém.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm happy to address the issue, but if you allow me, because I was addressed directly, I wanted to make a comment. And I think it's very important also for our own taxpayers, because development cooperation, humanitarian and ODA spending in general is very much under pressure. So I think we need to show with our partners, but also to our own constituents, that every cent, every euro we are investing in climate adaptation and mitigation in our cooperation is not only yielding results, but it's also in our own best interest. So we have the highest interest in effective cooperation. I don't want to go too much into detail, but I think with our Brazilian friends, what's extraordinary and what I think also leads to that high level of bilateral cooperation is that not only the federal government, but we just heard from our friend from Belém, also the regions have implementation capacities. And of course, I mean, I think it's nice also for our friends from GIZ to hear that this is very much appreciated. Also the financial cooperation is important, and Brazil with BNDES has a very powerful structure itself. So I think when we agree about projects, it's not that we are designing the project somewhere in Bonn or Berlin and bring it to Brazil. This is the product of a cooperation. And in many cases, and it's the way it should be, I mean, the local leaders know best where the money should be implemented. And another comment that I really wanted to make, because I could very much relate to what our friend from Belém just said. I mean, I remember that in the German discussion, we had colleagues from Parliament and from the public asking us, why are you working with big cities when it's about protecting the rainforest? And I think the reason is very clear. I mean, I had the privilege to be a couple of times to both of the big cities in the Amazon, both Manaus, of course, and Belém. And by the way, I saw also, of course I like more Belém, yeah, sure, yes, yeah. But I saw the changes, by the way, because my first trip was as a backpacker after finishing my school and everything. So, but But I think if we, and this is true for Brazil, but also for other regions, right? If there are good living conditions, if local communities feel included in decision making, if there's a level of safety and health services, and most important, if there are good jobs, sustainable jobs, then there, to be very, to be very direct, then there is no need for people to engage in illegitimate economic activities in the rainforest. So the big cities in the Amazon are a reality, and we're not going to change that reality. And I think Belém has a big challenge ahead of it because of the organization of this event, but also a huge opportunity to show that actually sustainable concepts can work. And we are happy to support that, not because only we are friends, but we think there are lessons to be learned. We're also talking about the Congo Basin, for example. And so that, I think, COP can bring to the table. So I have no time left for the answer to your question, but look, I think mobilizing private capital in times of scarce ODA resources is obviously key. There's a big gap still in the funding necessities, including for infrastructure for big cities. And I think we made a point at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference to bring about a new platform to mobilize private capital. Is that the solution alone? Certainly not. And it should also not be a way to justify cutting climate finance. So I don't want to be misunderstood, but both needs to be done. We need to create the momentum. We need to remind governments of their responsibilities, but this is a shared responsibility. And sometimes I think we are still lacking the innovative financial instruments and that are at the end of the day really delivering. And that's also a point where we have a close cooperation with the Brazilian government.
Thank you, Secretary. And like, as we call, as an eclair, as someone that here in the organization always try to emphasize that when you talk about those elements of equity, we try to interpret that our agenda needs to have one of its axes that's talk about inequality, how we can be more focused on people and people's capacity to be engaged in the different aspects of what sustainability is. So thank you for the powerful message. And Philip, considering your last, now we are for the final cycle of our observations here of this panel. We're going to have full 2 weeks for COP30. And then we're going to, during this full 2 weeks, sometimes people say that, no, we're going to have 1 day for cities and local governments, or you're going to have 1 day for one specific topic or agenda. We always sustain that we need to have the full agenda thinking about how we're going to implement locally. How do you see that we're going to have opportunities to have this kind of conversation all along the 2 weeks of the COP, and what you would perceive as well of something that could come, considering the Brazilian presidency perspective, that could come from this engagement in Belém during those 2 weeks in November?
Yeah, I think you have a huge opportunity in Belém to develop different axes. We have 6 pavilions devoted to each different topic. And again, I come back to what I think it's very important that during this week, we develop as much as we can the action agenda, but also we come forward with something for the normative agenda as well. This is very important. We have to devote our brains now to think what can be inserted into the normative agenda, because this is where the risk is, the major risk to the whole system, I think, to the survival of multilateralism in climate policy. I think this is the most important thing that I expect for the 2 weeks. And now, if you allow me, I would like to also comment Secretary Annan's comment, because I might have framed my concern in an appropriate way. What I meant, and I give you an example. In Brazil, we have a set of multi-billion funds devoted to forest and to climate mitigation and so on and so forth. The managers, the fund managers, they have a huge difficulty in allocating these funds. Why? Because there's a lack of bankable projects. And then in this sense, that was what I meant. It was not to make a critique, but an ask for help in the sense that we, in the capacity building processes that we all try to develop in Brazil, we all devote energy to that market failure, to fulfill that market failure in bankable projects. We don't have that. So you see all these fund managers desperate in trying to find projects that they can allocate, and then sometimes they just allocate anywhere. And this is terrible for the fund, for the capital reproduction system. So this is what I meant when I asked for your help in reality.
And criticism is fine.
No, Philip, thank you. And thank you. And I believe to reinforce your consideration regarding how we're going to be fundamental to have concrete advance considering everything that the multilateralism is passing by in this past years, and how things are not going to be easier in the time to come, and how we need to get concrete elements to advance our agenda. And we sustain that the urban agenda is one of the agendas that we need to make in focus centers to be connected to implementation. Thank you so much for your perspective. And to close this round of questionings and debates and conversations that I'm really happy that we're able to achieve, I'd like to find a comment from you, André. You started your pitch a few minutes ago talking about legacy and talking about how hard it is for a city that has so much to try to achieve for its citizens to face this event, but the opportunities that are related to it, I believe that you start to demonstrate, and how you are trying to achieve, and of course to have a new city government that just started 6 months ago, and to have the event being occurred in plus 5 months, it's not an easy task for sure. I'd like your vision of, okay, what's going to be the legacy that you envisage for the years to come? When you're talking about, okay, we know that we are not the city A or B that people may connect, that's going to be like an event center for this kind of, and maybe a too big event for us to do annually. That's some critics that even the Brazilian government is talking about, and something that we need to face for sure. But what do you see as the legacy that you envisage as the city of Belém going forward beyond COP30?
Rodrigo, acho que o primeiro, vou fazer algumas provocações que naturalmente reverberam, é que a COP no Brasil e em Belém não é uma oportunidade só para a gente, é uma oportunidade para o mundo, porque Belém pode se tornar, inclusive, um grande pavilhão de feira, eu digo, a céu aberto, onde empresas, organismos internacionais, ao invés de participarem de grandes feiras em grandes salões refrigerados, podem contribuir e mostrar naturalmente como suas soluções funcionam e são capazes de, acima de tudo, transformar vidas. Então, acho que essa é uma provocação que eu convido, e a Prefeitura tem convidado muito, e o governo, para que, novamente, dizendo aqui algo que saiu e eu tenho repetido, menos dedos apontados e mais mãos estendidas, né? Nós precisamos de mais mãos estendidas e menos dedos apontados. Acho que esse é o grande ponto. Do ponto de vista de infraestrutura, que muito tem sido dito, acho que também vale uma avaliação, que se o ponto central é discutir hotel ou tipo de acomodação, talvez está na hora da gente rever a missão da COP, de fato. Eu não tenho absoluta dúvida, e ninguém tem a dúvida, de que nós vamos ter a capacidade de receber todos que vão para lá. Talvez não com todo o luxo ou com toda a expectativa que às vezes existe em outros centros, mas vamos receber sem esconder problemáticas, mas do nosso jeito. Até porque também Belém tem não sei se todo mundo sabe, mas Belém tem uma das maiores procissões religiosas do mundo. Todo segundo domingo de outubro, são mais de 2,5 milhões de pessoas andando pelas ruas de Belém. São mais de 80 mil pessoas, segundo os dados oficiais, que nós recebemos, pessoas para ver e viver o Círio de Nazaré. Receber um grande evento já faz parte da nossa história há 300 e alguma coisa anos, que é o número de círios que já existem. Então, isso não é uma problemática para a gente, mas eu acho que é exatamente por essa questão que Belém foi escolhida. E quando a gente fala de legado, eu tenho repetido um círculo que eu acho que se completa muito bem e que alguns, principalmente uma parte da imprensa, não quer enxergar. Se você anda pelas principais áreas de Belém, dentro dos planos de COP, por exemplo, você tem mais de 300 ruas e o maior programa de macrodrenagem e de saneamento básico já feito na história da cidade. E isso está dando dignidade de vida para as pessoas, que antes tinham as suas casas. E Belém é uma cidade ultra complexa, porque ela é cortada por bacias hidrográficas, é uma cidade alagada, com altíssimo risco de alagamento, inclusive. Então, a resiliência climática é um desafio. Então, o legado de transformação, o que o governo do Estado, o governo federal e o governo municipal têm feito, por exemplo, para capacitação de mão de obra, ensinando inglês, capacitando equipes de serviço, que hoje saem das suas casas, com a sua casa com asfalto digno, com a sua casa com saneamento básico atendido, entrando num programa de mobilidade que está totalmente sendo refeito para receber um evento como esse, isso é um legado de dignidade, de transformação de vida que precisa ser enxergado e não pode nunca ser esquecido. Acho que, então, assim, o que está acontecendo numa cidade como Belém, eu volto para o ponto inicial, é a chance, inclusive pelos desafios de construção civil, de infraestrutura, de preparar em tão pouco tempo uma cidade para receber um evento de um tamanho desse, é a oportunidade de mostrar como soluções inteligentes de moradias... Belém tem mais de 40 ilhas que compõem Belém. Tem mais de 40 mil pessoas morando em ilhas. Como você leva soluções de energia, de conectividade, de mobilidade, de saúde, para poder deslocar pessoas que estão do outro lado do rio e que vivem do que hoje a gente chama de economia, de bioeconomia, mas que há muito tempo essa bioeconomia já existe na vida dessas pessoas. Elas vivem da floresta. E é um momento de levar uma provocação de como elas podem viver da floresta de forma muito mais sustentável. Belém tem o nosso ouro, né, que nós chamamos o Pará, que é o açaí. Muita gente vive do açaí. E está do outro lado da ilha. É muito próximo da gente. Então, o legado que está sendo deixado para a cidade e para outras cidades, sem sombra de dúvidas, é incrível. Mas, para concluir, eu queria roubar um minutinho só para dizer que muito tem sido dito sobre a cidade de Belém. A expectativa que o nosso povo e que 1,5 milhão de pessoas estão vivendo para receber cada um de vocês que estão aqui e outros tantos que estão nesse prédio aqui ao lado é enorme, gente. A gente está se preparando realmente para receber esse evento. E eu convido vocês a eu não diria não acreditar, mas buscar entender uma outra Belém que não é a que está sendo, às vezes, apresentada e dita. É uma Belém de pessoas que tem um povo extremamente acolhedor, que talvez não tenha a infraestrutura que outros lugares têm, mas tem um povo que mora e que vive naquela cidade amazônica, e que é reconhecido por quem já foi em Belém pelo acolhimento, pelo calor, pelo sorriso, pela receptividade que o nosso povo tem. Então, da melhor forma possível, a gente vai receber, de uma forma muito orgulhosa e transformadora para a cidade, para a Amazônia e para a região, todos vocês. E nesse convite, Rodrigo, eu prometo que é 1 minutinho, eu queria uma oportunidade de mostrar um vídeo para vocês, que é uma outra Belém, que talvez muitos de vocês não estão recebendo a informação, mas que é a nossa Belém, a verdadeira Belém, uma cidade da Amazônia, e que eu queria muito que, nesse 1 minuto, vocês pudessem ver um pouco e viver essa cidade tão potente e que tem tanto a entregar para todos vocês. Obrigado, pessoal.
Não só pela imponência de suas árvores ou pela força dos seus rios. Belém é movimento, é lugar de gente calorosa, é onde os ritmos te abrem as portas do coração para sentir a Amazônia. É onde os sabores são ancestrais, onde te dá fome de conhecer, de ver de perto, de experimentar e de aproveitar tudo o que tem para oferecer. Belém é muito mais do que um destino, é o seu destino. São paisagens que se renovam constantemente. São muitos os lugares para conhecer. Aqui você vai encontrar patrimônios, arte, cultura e criar laços com uma história que tem tradição e fé em sua identidade. É em Belém que você vai se encontrar, pois todos os caminhos te levam a um lugar diferente para você chamar de seu. Belém tem de tudo, e é tudo de bom. Só falta você.
Thank you, André. Thank you for the glimpse of the beauty city of Belém do Pará. And I would like to, as we finish and we wrap up this morning, to thank our panelists here present that I believe that make an encapsulation of the debate that we have this whole morning, try to emphasize the pivotal moment that we are facing in our agenda, the pivotal moment that we are facing to try to create some sort of coherence in our perception of how our climate agenda connects to the local and how this needs to be connected to a direct implementation. The opportunity that we have with COP30 is to try to demonstrate that we are able, as a global society of course, national governments, but the civil society so engaged, and local authorities that are able to match this responsibility. So once again, thank you so much, Secretary Nils, Philip, André, for this moment. Thank you for all the panelists of this morning, and I believe that we are going to have another run that we're going to help us out this afternoon. Joe, please.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, panelists. I now stand between you all and lunch, so I will keep this very quick. But I do have some important logistic information for this afternoon. We're going to go and have lunch now, and we will extend that until 2:15. And lunch is going to take place in the canteen. It's just outside the auditorium on the right-hand side. Staff can show you where that is. Enjoy, network, feed yourselves as well. At 2:15, we will have 4 roundtable discussions that will take place. Similar to how we did the deep dives this morning, 2 will be in this room, 2 will be in other spaces as well. Quick overview of the topics. The first one on the role of gray literature in shaping the IPCC Special Report on Cities. This will be taking place upstairs on the 2nd floor. You can meet at the base of the stairs just outside, and staff will guide you up to that room. No, sorry, that will be at the end of the hall on the left-hand side. Apologies. The second roundtable will be on data, the power of a shared data-driven framework to operationalize multi-level governance. That will be on the 2nd floor. So please meet at the base of the stairs before going up. In this room, we'll have 2 discussions around engaging business for climate emergency. The first will be on scaling energy efficiency for cities, a business roundtable for accelerated action, and then also accelerating climate action, financing pathways to COP30 through nature-based solutions. Those 2 tables will be here in the back of this room. Last comment before releasing you all for lunch, just like to give a big thanks to the team of interpreters that have been working all morning, providing English and Portuguese translation. Thank you so much for your hard work. Enjoy lunch.